Hello, and welcome to the Hidden Gifts of Loss podcast with me, your host, Julie Trainer, and my guest today, Rosa Montaño. And we got connected through a challenge, and she is going to tell me about her beloved father and hidden gifts that she discovered through that loss. And we were just talking before I started recording about how we got connected. And there was, so we got connected through the Prairie Pioneer Project. So, Rosa, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here and that we were
Thank
able to do
you.
this.
Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. This is a challenge, and but thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know. I heard that it was funny because I was the bonus challenge, right? At the very end of what it was the bucket list.
Yes, you are. Yes.
Yeah, and people were like, "Oh, I've never been on a podcast. I'm afraid." And what's funny is I did Stacy's Find Your Voice challenge in January, and I was afraid to start a podcast. And
And
yeah,
here you
and
are.
here I am, right?
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, those
Great.
challenges. Yeah, they really get you into activity, you know,
Yes.
and kind of
We
able
find our voices and we find ourselves, and I'm just so grateful for. I'll be doing that next one. Yes, the Find Your Voice Challenge
oh, it's so
soon.
good. It's so fun. Yeah, I just did
Yeah.
my second time. So
Oh, good.
yeah, really,
That says
really
a
good.
lot then. I probably will do it a second time too then. I
Hmm.
accept the challenge.
Yay. Wonderful. So tell me about your father. Tell me his name. I love it when
You
people say the name of their person at the
with
beginning of
the
the show.
accent and everything, huh?
Yes.
Well, my father was born Isidro Montaño Hernandez. He was born in Guadalajara, Mexico, in the year 1936. He it was a proud man, and people just were drawn to him. And what I find interesting about him is that he, at the age of about, I want to say 7 or 8, he was playing with his brothers, and he suffered a fall where he hit his head, back of his head. And because they had humble life, they were not able to get the medical care that he needed at that time. So he actually was had a small eye. He, they were not able to fix his eye, to even with the glass eye, and so he kept his eye, and he was maimed. And throughout the rest of his life, though, I think it was that particular injury that catapulted him to be the brave person he was by moving to America, by putting himself through school in Mexico to learn English as a second language. Um, but throughout his life, after he suffered that injury, his mom was not the kindest ladies out there. She made a point of telling him that he was ugly. Um, and just, she waxed poetic about her other children, but my father was the black sheep of the family. And I find it ironic because he was the one who challenged himself the most. He got himself to university. He learned English very well. And in so doing, because his social capabilities, he's such a funny guy and always singing, and he people were drawn to him. So he had one particular American friend who, back in the 60s, mid 60s, it was so much easier to become a resident of the United States of America. So my father was young, and this friend said, I think you need to go to America. You're young, you need to travel, you speak fluent English, the land of opportunity, etc. And my father at first declined. My understanding is that he declined originally because he came from a family of seven. With him, it was a total of 7 kids, and his mom and dad. But he felt an obligation to be there for the family. But his friend kept insisting, you need to go to America. You need to travel. and educate yourself even further. So he did, and he moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. He left my mom as a girlfriend in Mexico, and he courted her through old-fashioned letters, which I recently found. It's so weird how this whole chat that we're having, Julie, today, things, I mean, talk about hidden gifts that just pop up. So I found some of those love letters to her. And so they courted. He would go back when he had a break, about a month break. And eventually they ended up getting married in Mexico. I came along a year later in 1967. And then my brothers did too. And eventually they decided to move everybody. We all moved to America. I guess to stay for me when I was about 5 years old. But he's a very brave man to have just uprooted himself the way that he did. And he always had dreams of going back to Mexico, making enough money, saving the money and going back to Mexico. But that was not in the cards. We ended up staying in America forever and a day. So, and to this day, my mom, I'll say, Mom, do you want to, retire? She's 87 now, and she does not want to go back. So we're here to stay. But yes, I think it was that injury and being made fun of. His brothers were incorrigible and would call him ugly, and his mother did too. But in so doing, his hidden gift was, it catapulted him, it challenged him. And so he brought us over, and God bless him, because if it weren't for him, his whole siblings would not have been able to come out here several years later.
Yeah. Wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's funny you say about the letters, because I found all the letters that my parents wrote each other when they were courting as well. They were from Ohio, and my dad went out to California when he was in the Army, and he just wanted to get out of the small town that he grew up in, and so he just went out there with nothing and wrote letters to my mother, who was, very, very sheltered, didn't even go to the wrong side of town because she wasn't allowed. And he persuaded her through these letters for a 2-week visit. And, because this was 1961, and she wasn't that kind of girl, right, that would live with her boyfriend. So she was staying in a hotel right next to his apartment. And then I think part of it was like to save money. They got married, but it's not the same as moving to another country, but it might as well have been for them, because this was so outside of, anything that they had ever done.
I mean, talk about the gift of a letter, and
I know.
And I mean, we were people that wrote letters back then. I mean, they took that time to write, and they were authors. Unbeknownst to them, they were authors.
Yes.
That detail. And so he was very detailed. So when I was going, I actually am trying to go back to Mexico, and my passport expired, but I was actually trying to find my paperwork so I can go and renew. I let it lapse a long time, so I have to redo the whole process, not a renewal. But so I was going through my papers, and I came across this stack, and they were all, there was a beautiful ribbon around them. Obviously, my mom had kept them. She doesn't know I have them. And one in particular, because they continued, quote unquote, courting after they got married, after I was born. And one in particular, and I'm going to cry, because one of the guilts when he passed away was I a good enough daughter? But this letter confirmed it, because when I was young, I guess I asked him, I said, I want a bike. And this was when I was still living in Guadalajara. And he writes in the letter, and it was all about me. And he says, I want you to get her the bike. He was telling my mom, get her the bike. She's asked for a bike. And my mom, God bless her, she has always been a little penny pincher, and no, that's frivolous, and no. He made her get me the bike. And I wish I had that bike still now, but anyway, so, it was all about me. And I thought, oh, thanks.
Oh,
So it was
that's
validating that I was like a good daughter because I'm the oldest of four.
uh-huh.
And so when we moved out here, um, to the San Francisco Bay Area. The weird thing is, I did not want to go to school in Mexico. My mom tried leaving me in the kindergarten classes, and I don't know why. I did not want to go there. And so they have metal doors, and I'll never forget just banging. I literally knew what I was doing, and it's scary to me because my mom would drop me off at the school. It was just around the block from our home. And I would remember banging the door because it was a metal door, and I knew my mom was painfully shy. So no attention. She never wanted any attention, but I knew I was going to force her to come back and get me out of school. So she attempted to leave me at school, I would say about 10 times. And then she finally said, I'm taking her out. She doesn't want to be in school. What's so scary is the tenacious, stubborn girl that I am. I knew what I was doing, but I also knew I did not want to be in school here. And so then a year later, that's when we officially moved to America. I did not speak a word of English, and I we had humble beginnings there too, but we had a TV. It only played 3 channels, and one of the channels was having an Audrey Hepburn marathon. And I watched A Nun Story. So, and I loved just her garb, her nunnery stuff. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a nun because I want to wear that outfit.
Oh my God.
But I started listening to English because obviously it's in English. And we lived above a storefront, and our stairs led to the back parking lot of this little strip mall. But to the left, I'd be at the top of the stairs, and I looked over, and there's the Catholic church there. We're Catholic, and there's a Catholic church, and they're wearing these beautiful St. Patrick's uniforms, green. I think maybe that's why green is one of my favorite colors. But I ran in, and I saw the nuns, and they were wearing the same exact outfit. And so I ran in and I said, Mom, I want to go to that school. I want to go to that school. So she's like, what? We're too poor. That school costs money. No, no, no. So my
Mm-hmm.
father came home, and I overheard her telling him, and he says, I'm going to go talk to them. So he went and he talked to the nuns there, and they said to him, we don't speak any Spanish. I don't know if this is going to work out. And he said, I don't care. She's going to have to learn. So just talk to her in English. And so he went and he talked to them, and he worked extra jobs there, house, not maintenance, and house cleaning, to have gotten me into this rich school. But anyway, yeah. So he spoke on my behalf then, and he told my mother, no, don't you understand? She's saying she wants to go to school. We need to jump on this. And he worked it. He literally worked it. And then flash forward, there's all these girls, and they're all blonde and blue-eyed, and I just wanted to be blonde and blue-eyed. I was literally an alien in there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm dark-haired and brown eyes, and I'm so different. But I had this thing where no one could pronounce my name, my real name, which is Rosalba, which I found out is the haze of a rose. And I just shunned my name, and I thought, oh, no one can say it. Why can't I just be Jane or Jill or something basic? So I changed my name. I just all of a sudden told my friends once I was able to speak English, and I said, my name is now Linda. So 4th grade, my friends would call me, the regular phones that you can bang if you're upset with somebody. So we had one phone in the kitchen, and I overheard him answering the phone, and he says, what? He goes, there's no Linda here. And he hangs up. And I'm like, Dad, that's me. So the gift he gave me that day, as he chastised me, saying, don't you ever forget where you came from. Yes, you're in a different country. Acclimate, learn the language, be part of the community. We all bleed the same way, same color, but don't ever forget where you came from. And I learned my lesson and I became Rosa, not Rosalba, but I said, okay. And so he was shocked that I changed my name to try to be somebody that I was not and to forget my culture. So I've embraced my culture and because of him at that young age.
Oh, that is just so beautiful. He sounds amazing. And you like
He was a
you have the
neat guy.
tenacity as a small child. You knew what you wanted and
Yeah,
you were gonna find a way to
yeah,
get it. And I bet that has
yeah,
served you your whole life.
yeah. I mean, as I reflect, we're going on the 10th year of his passing uh, in November. And as I reflect, I mean, he's just given me so much, and I'm so grateful to him. I didn't know it then. I certainly know it now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the relationship doesn't end when they pass.
No,
It
yeah,
evolves in a way. It kind of changes, it morphs,
yeah,
and but it doesn't end and that's something that
yeah.
I've discovered as well, and
Beautiful.
yeah, and I feel like, that having that guilt is so hard. And that one of the, I think, hidden gifts as time goes on is he helped you let go of that guilt by that letter showing up
Showing
right
up
then.
because all these years, I mean, 10 years come November, and it just pops up. And I didn't even know. I guess I must have just grabbed it when I went through all the paperwork because I was in church as the oldest, and I stuffed it in boxes, and it just was neat. And I just went, "Hey, Dad, thanks."
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
funny, funny, funny. He's a funny guy.
Yeah. Oh, he sounds cool.
Yeah,
He,
he was cool. He was.
yeah. Yeah. And I love that he took that, that pain of being made fun of and just said, no, and it sounds like you got a lot of him.
Yeah,
You
yeah, he
know.
never let anything stop him. And I'm so proud of him because there was a period as we got older. So I'm the oldest of four. My sister and I are the bookends, the boys are in the middle. And one brother in particular during his high school years, it was a very affluent, or it still is a very affluent county where we were raised. And he ended up shunning my dad, and I never, it was like, he's my dad. And so he was a garbage collector. He worked for the local sanitary company for years. And there were times when I didn't have a car to get to school, and so I would walk to school, and he would stop in the rain because back then we had torrential rains. And he would, make his route so that he would pick me up and give me a ride in this big truck. And yeah, there was a moment where I was so embarrassed because all my friends were very affluent. They had their own cars. And here I am being dropped off by, my dad in this big truck, a garbage truck. And,
Yeah.
but I came to embrace that. And, but I also found out that one of my brothers, ended up shunning who my dad was and what he did, which was an honest living.
Yeah.
And later, my dad said to me, "Your brother pretended he didn't know me."
Oh,
And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But, my brother has since come along, and, he's changed because he's a dad now. So it's funny how things change when you
yeah.
become a father as well.
Yeah.
Um, but that hurt my father because he was such a proud guy. I mean, at their baseball games, the boys, he'd be the first one yelling out there, and "That's my kid," really loud. And, my mom's like really shy. She's like, "Wait, be quiet." And I'm like, "My dad's so crazy," but he was proud of his boys playing, soft or not softball, but no, what, not peewee, but baseball.
Baseball. Yeah.
But yeah, he was very proud, and we never let on that he never let on that the disfigured face affected him because he was a go-getter. And so much so that the most successful out of his family, because when I was born, he bought a home. We have a home in Guadalajara, and his siblings, they never amounted to being as successful as my dad, because my father was like, I'm going to do this. And he bought this home. And, when I was born, that was the gift to his family. And so we have a home there. I regret to say that we don't go there as often as we should be. The last time was when he passed away. And he passed away there. And that was a really strange, when I look back, I was like, oh my gosh, he did it his way. So, yeah, in March, so my father passed away in November of 2014. March of 2014, he was not feeling up to par. And I said, Dad, we need to go. I have to take you to the hospital. And he says, no, very stubborn. Well, I ended up working that day, and I went to visit my family after work, and he was incoherent. He wasn't making sense. And I'm like, we're calling the ambulance. So the ambulance took him, and he was in the ICU for about a week. But he's such a bulldog. He's so tenacious. So when he was admitted, we did get the call, or actually we were all, around him, but we were told that we needed to figure out his end of life, his affairs, because he wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you don't know my dad. He's going to make it. He is. And he was out for about 4 days, but I think on the 5th day, he finally opened up his eyes, and we were all around him. And he says, where am I? And I said, oh, you're in the hospital, and, explained to him what happened. And then from there, he went to rehab for about a month, and we would go and visit him every day. And he, tried really hard. He got out of it. And at that time, I decided to take a month off so I could be with my parents and help care for him. But he's very strong-willed, very tenacious, and he, became very independent again after his rehab stint. And there was a moment there where I'm having breakfast with my parents, and they would always discuss the current affairs. He was a voracious reader, and he loved getting the paper every day and reading it. So then he and my mom would read different sections, and then they would discuss the current affairs.
Aww.
So I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I don't know, doing something, and I'm having breakfast. And my mom stepped away to be in her garden. And I just quietly looked at him and I said, hey, so do you remember what happened the day that you were admitted? And he got really serious, and he says, I do. He says, I remember I made it to the ER, and then I collapsed, and I don't remember anything after that. And I said, do you remember all of us coming around? We're talking extended family, everybody coming to see you. And he says, yes. And we have, I have a cousin that she tells herself she's a ghost hunter. Her and her husband go to these places and they ghost hunt. But all through her life, she's always said some things where I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I think that there is some credibility. But when he was in the ICU, she did say that she came out in the waiting area, because it was the ICU, so only 2 people could go in at one time. She comes out, she goes, hey, who's that woman? Is there a woman in your dad's life who's got long hair, wears it in a ponytail, has kind of bluish gray eyes? And she described this woman to a T, and I'm like, no, I don't know, because it's definitely not his mom. And she goes, she says, well, I'm going to tell you that is his angel, and she's overseeing his care. And I went, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Well, here we are having breakfast, and we're done. And I asked him, do you remember that day? And then he tells me, yeah, I collapsed on the line. I said, do you remember when you were sleeping and resting? And he says, I don't know. And I said, who is this woman? And I described her, and his face lit up, and he says, that's my aunt. And I went, okay. And he says, why? I said, you've never talked about her. And he says, well, no, she passed away a long time ago, but she took care of me when I was young. And I said, well, guess what, Dad? You know, I'm going to believe it, but she was there watching over you and making sure that you were going to be okay. And he just got the biggest glow. And then I said, how come you came back? Because they said you were going to leave us.
Yeah.
And he says, you know, and he described it. Now, my father has never really been a church-going man.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to say what he said next, I went, oh, damned, he is spiritual. So he said that, and he described it. And he says, you know what they say about that light that draws you in? I said, yeah. He says, I felt that light. And he says, it's the most electrifying, magnetic light that you just want to go towards it. And he says, and I found myself going towards it. And it made me so happy because I knew at that end of the light, and he's describing this, and at the end of the light, I was going to get the biggest hug, the most warm hug ever.
Oh.
And I said, wow. And he says, yeah. He goes, it's true. And it's so grandiose. He goes, I can't even describe the feeling, but it's this euphoric feeling of just going home. And I wanted to get there and get there. And I said, so if you got there, what would you have done? And he says, I was going to say, I'm home. And he did the whole arm thing. I said, wow, Dad. And I go, so then what happened? And he sits back in his chair and he says, I woke up.
Mm.
And I said, it wasn't your time to go, Dad.
Yeah.
I go, it wasn't your time. You've got a lot, you know, you've got miles to go before you sleep. He says, yeah, I know. So that was in March, you know, went through his rehab. That was another month. So then it, you know, he got better, and probably like May or June, you know, he was out walking and doing all, you know, going back to his routine. But flash forward, we get to November, Thanksgiving, 2014, and he had made plans because he received a call that his brother was on his deathbed and he needed to go to Guadalajara, Mexico to see him. And I would FaceTime my family because I'm in Wyoming. I moved to Wyoming. And I said, Dad, don't go. You need to go to the doctor right now because I need to make sure your lungs are okay. Don't go. And he got very, very, he's a Ram. He's a April. So he's a Ram and I'm a Virgo. And we were just like,
yeah. Oh gosh, yes.
Don't. So there was a lot of like, you know, don't. And yes. And finally he says to me, which made me just step back. And I'm like, okay. And he says, you know what? He goes, you're just being a joy zapper and you are making it seem like the most negative thing. He goes, I need to go and I am going. And this was on FaceTime. And I took a deep breath and I said, then promise me when you come back, because I'm making the appointment right now. As the oldest, I always took care of everybody's appointments.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, like he went, oh, wow, she's a great, okay. But here's the thing. I know for a fact that he wasn't supposed to go. And every, you know, be it God and any power of being that you believe in, he was being stopped from going. And the reason I know is because my brother gave him a ride to the airport. He gets there, and then about 20 minutes later, he calls my brother and he says, I need a ride back. I lost my passport. So obviously he couldn't go through not customs, but security or anything. And he was denied boarding because he kind of needs his passport.
Yeah.
So he was very disillusioned. And so my brother turned back around. And then when he talked to my mom, he says, yeah, he goes, gosh, I don't think I was supposed to be on this ride here. He said, but I made it. Well, someone found it. He had gone to the restroom, and then he hears his name, Isidro. And he says, here. And he's already starting to exit. Here's your passport. And he runs in, and the doors, to quote my mom, as relayed by my father, the doors were about to close. Talk about sliding doors. They were about to close. And he said, I'm here. Last minute, they were closing the door, and he got himself on that flight.
My God.
So he left the day after Thanksgiving. A little sidebar, my poor mom, he knew how to make a great turkey. It was always juicy and never dry. My mom's turkeys are always dry. So her biggest guilt trip when he passed away, when, she found out that he passed away, she's like, I didn't give him a good Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh.
So to this day, I don't think she doesn't make Thanksgiving dinner. I think they order it in. And but he left to go see his brother and pay his last respects and blah blah. And that was on a Friday, a day after Thanksgiving. My mom's birthday was that Thanksgiving week, and his last gift to her was a sewing machine, a modern sewing machine. Now she's a seamstress, and she's got the old Singer, old-fashioned, heavy-duty metal things, but he wanted her to have a modern one. And I feel, when I look back, Julie, as I head into this podcast with you today, I think it's so weird because she never opened up that box. And this last time that I was visiting with family, I saw it and I'm like, Mom, how come you haven't opened the box? She goes, I don't want to. And I said, well, do you want me to sell it? I said, or I'll take it. I've always wanted a sewing machine.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, well, that sewing machine, I'm going out there next week for my sister's 50th birthday party. That sewing machine is now mine, and it's actually my dad's gift to me. So she never opened it. She goes, it was never meant for me. She goes, I want you to have it. So, it's just weird, how the universe just kind of.
Yes.
So again, I'm like, thanks, Dad, because I have signed up for a modern prairie quilting class, never quilted. And here I am now, have a sewing machine. I hope it works after 10 years, but yes. And so he went, and in Guadalajara, I was not able to have him transferred to a private hospital, which the healthcare would have been much different. He remained in a public hospital. It was the worst conditions, in my opinion, only because I work at a hospital. I've been working in a hospital forever and a day. And he was in the ICU. I received the call. And the strange thing is, we go through a canyon, which is about 45-minute drive through the canyon. We don't have cell phone service. And I had just been talking to Rob, and I looked over at him, and I don't know why we got on the subject of my father of us not having Christmases sometimes and not having enough money for Christmas gifts. So I said, I told him about this one toy, and a lot of his clients would give him toys, knowing that he had children. They would give him toys, and they were used. But he gave us this toy, and I was so happy because I'm like, it works, And so I got kind of choked up, and I said, that's so weird that I'm talking about Dad like that. And he's all, hey, you're just being nostalgic, melancholic. We get out of the canyon, and then the phone, it starts beeping and beeping and beeping. And it's my brother, one of my brothers. And I thought, that's unlike him to be calling me. And I call him, and he says, where have you been? Dad, Dad. And I went, wait, what's going on?
Oh my God.
Dad is in the ICU. Dad's in the ICU. Oh my gosh. Now, I moved in October of 2014. My mom and my other brother drove me out to Wyoming.
Mhm.
I look back on my dad. My dad loved driving, but he sat this one out. And that should have been a clue then. I know it was a clue now. And I just remember looking at the driveway, and my brother's driving. He's the first one to drive. And then we're going to switch off. My mom's in the back. I'm in the passenger seat up front. I hugged my dad. And he says, like always, lose weight, lose weight. Okay. I mean, that's been his thing. That's my guilt trip too. So I'll tell you about that one. What I started on his birth month this year, but my whole health journey. So thanks. Another beautiful hidden gift. Thanks, Dad. So I'm waving and he's just standing there. And I went, huh, I wonder if I'll see him again. So that was that in October. Made the official move here, started my work here at the hospital, and then this happens. I get the call. So it's rural Wyoming. It's very hard to get direct flights out. I either have to go to Idaho, or and it's the winter. It's snowing, and I finally made it to Guadalajara, and the staff, from what I was hearing from the social worker, they were waiting for me to arrive to sign off. My mom and my brother from the San Francisco Bay Area had flown down. They made it there before I did. But because I'm the oldest, my mom wanted me to handle everything. And because I'm at a hospital. So they stopped his health care until I got there. It took me 2 days to get to the hospital. And it was the most rundown hospital. Wow. I thought, my gosh. And the staff, the rude staff, but I made it. And the thing is that you have these security. So even in the shopping malls, there's, security, they all have guns with them, big, guns, rifles. And, and so I'm here to see my dad, but I'm stopped. And they said, no, you need to blah, blah, blah. I had to go through all this red tape to get in. I said, listen, it's taken me 2 days to get here. I need to see my father. His health care is on the line here. So I said, I want to talk to your supervisor and blah, blah. And they did all this menacing, I'm, I'm better than you, blah, blah. And I'm like, I said, how would you like it if that was your family member? So I was let in, and 15 floors, they only had one working elevator. Okay, it's pretty bad. One working elevator that both patients that are being transferred from different floors and visitors use. And that's it. So I make it, and there's a huge line to get into this elevator. And I'm like, so the irony is, my father's always like, lose weight, honey, lose weight. He would sign me up for all Herbalife, Weight Watchers, Jenny. He signed me up. He never asked my prescription, but he would sign me up. So, I mean, the bullet, where you make your little magic bullet smoothies, that was Dad. So I get there, and I'm like, I'm sitting, and he was on the 12th floor. I literally had to walk all those floors, and I'm like, I'll be damn it, Dad, But I made it. I don't know how, but I made it. And I finally get there, and I see the staff, and I said, I'm here. What do you need me to sign? And so they went over what they needed to do. So once they got my signature, they moved him. He wasn't in the ICU. He was in a standard bed. They finally moved him to ICU because they were waiting for my signature.
Oh my God.
I literally have to be pumping his ventilator. Those, I think it's a ventilator. It's a tube, because they don't have the amenities to use real medical equipment. So the team is there, and they're like, oh, do you mind? You have to pump it. This is life or death. You have to pump it. And I was like, I can't even believe this is happening. But I'm pumping, and they're wheeling him, and I'm right next to him. We get to the elevator, the one elevator for this whole hospital. And he needs, because they need to hook him up again because the equipment is not mobile enough to go with my father. So we're doing it all manually. We get to the elevator. It's taking forever. I'm like, you guys, what is taking so long? So literally the one guy, I don't know, one of the techs opens the elevator doors and he's yelling, and I forget what name he was yelling. He's all, send the elevator up. And he's all, I'm using it. And they're like, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I am not in America right now,
Right? Like the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Yeah. And eventually it made it up. And I said, I said to myself, this is ridiculous. But they got him hooked up. He was in the ICU. And then he started receiving some sort of health care that was a little bit better. But we weren't allowed to really see him or be with him. So my cousins, God bless them, they came and we all took turns, just waiting and waiting. And they were not the staff. And that's what's so unfortunate, because they were not nice people. And I constantly had to say, if this was your family member, what would you do? Have some empathy. And being that I am a patient advocate, where there was a couple, they're much more rural, coming into the city, their son is in the ICU, and having to hear the secretary saying, get away from me. Can't you see I'm busy? And she's reading a novel. And I
that's
said,
unacceptable.
Went to talk to the director, and I said, that's why they see us the way they see us. I said, because you guys right here, I work at a hospital, never in a million years would we ever experience this in America. I said, so, you guys have to change your way. But it is what it is. My father was there for a whole month, close to a month. He passed away on December 20th. December 20th, 2014. He did it his way. And my uncle, who he thought he was going to die, he feels guilty because he didn't die. And I said, it wasn't your turn. God made a mistake, and it was Dad's turn. God knew what he was doing. It was Dad's turn. So we would, holiday, Christmas time, and, just sometimes waiting outside, literally sleeping outside for our family members. But with that being said, all these charitable churches, the groups would come and they would bring you presents and blankets and tamales and atole, which is this drink, cinnamon drink, and they would come every night and drop off blankets for all those people that were waiting for their family members, because they would only allow 2 people. And it's not even COVID, but they were just very strict about that. And the day, so they don't believe in call buttons. So the family member is the call button. So if there's anything that happened. So I spent pretty much 24/7 for close to a month being at my dad's side, because my mom, she was too weak. I didn't want her to also get ill. My brother had to come back to work. So I would tell her, Mom, you go home, and I'll stay with Dad. Became friends with the other patients, visitors. And the last day where he, I didn't know it then, but I found out they were going to be undergoing a strike. The hospital staff was undergoing a strike. And he got moved from the room where he was. He did get moved to a room with a view. And when he got transferred, I was by his side, and I opened up the curtains. I said, okay, Dad, this is your Guadalajara. When you get out, you tell me where you want to go. We'll go and revisit all those places. And he managed to look over, and he just kind of smiled. And he says, where's your mom? And I said, she's at home. I don't want her getting sick. She's at home. But and I was not feeling well. I got sick, like a brutal viral thing. And I said, Dad, you know what? I want you to come home with us again. Okay. So I don't want to get you sick.
Right.
So I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to go home. And he says, yeah, take care of your mom. Yeah, we'll be here bright and early, Dad. I'll be here at 6:00. Let me just get 4 hours of sleep, because I was sleeping on the floor or whatever little couch chairs there were. And And then he looks at me and he says, hey, he goes, and at the time he got transferred to a room from a 3-bed room to a 6-bed room. The one bed in front of him was empty. It was vacant at the time. So you just saw this wall. And he looks at me and then he looks at the wall and he's like, get me in line. And I was like, Dad, and I'm really tired, sick. Dad, what are you talking about? Put me in line, get me in line. He goes, look, there's a lot of people coming. Get me in line. And I said, Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, rest up, okay? You need to get better. You need to get better. Look at you. You're talking. This is a good sign. Dad, we're going to get you out of here. Because he kept saying, get me my clothes. I want to go home.
Yeah.
Right? So I said, Dad, so I said, you rest, okay? And I'll see you first thing. I promise you, I'll be here at 6 o'clock in the morning. You just rest. And he looks at me and he says, okay. He goes, but look, there's so many people. So I go home and I had very restless sleep. One of it was that I was sick in my lungs and everything. And but I was very restless. And then my mom knew that I was sick and she knocks on my door, walks in and says, I'm going to go see your dad. Okay. And I said, I'll be there soon. She goes, yeah, Alfredo, he's our neighbor in Guadalajara. She goes, he's going to give me a ride and then I'll have him come and get you. Okay. So I slept finally in the dawn. But in the dawn, though, I tossed and turned and a lot. He was just on my mind. And come to find out when we get this call, well, no, actually, the neighbor is rapping on the metal gate and he's tap, tap, tap. And I woke up and I'm like, what is going on? And he's yelling my name, Rosalba, Rosalba. And he's yelling, and I was like, okay. And I get up and all groggy. I open the door. And so the door, and then you have the porch, and then you've got the gate. And I said, what's going on? He says, hey, he was trying to, and he wasn't himself. So I knew that my father had passed away, but I refused to believe it. And he says, listen, your mom just called. The hospital's wanting to talk to you because you're the only one who knows the information and she doesn't feel comfortable answering. So can you get ready right away? Don't even bother showering. I need to take you over there because they have some questions. Okay, so I put whatever. And when we make it there, the lobby, it's Christmas time, but it's just the lobby. It's just so full of people. You'd think that you're in downtown shopping, Christmas shopping. No, it's just so full of people. But it's almost like I all of a sudden zoned in. My mom's not a crier. And she would happen to be next to the huge display of the nativity. And she was just standing there crying. And I said, hey, what's going on? Refusing to believe it. Your dad's gone. He's not there. Oh, you know what? They probably transferred him, Mom. He's probably in a different room. No. I don't understand. He's gone. And I said, my phone just kind of messed up here. And I said, okay. No, I need to see it for myself. I need to see the room. And I told her to wait because she couldn't walk up all those floors. Walked up all those floors. By this time, he had been switched over to the 15th floor after he left the ICU and walked all those floors. And I saw the staff because they had refused to talk to me when I connected with them. They said, we can't talk to you over the phone. We can't talk. And I already knew. I said, just tell me, is he alive or dead? This is when I was still at the house. I get there and the staff is there and they're just really quiet. Where's my dad? And no one said anything. I want to talk to his doctor. Okay, we'll get her for you. Okay. I walk down the hall and I see this trash bag. And I thought, why would they clean and leave a trash bag right in front, right next to the door where someone could walk out and trip over it? Yeah. And I thought, how tacky, but I'm like, whatever. But I'm talking to myself because he's still there. I'm sure he is. I walk in and I see one of my friends. We had become friends because her dad also was not doing well, and we became fast friends because we would take turns. We would take turns taking care of our loved ones. And she looks at me and she says, he's gone. He passed away. My dad did too. I said, what time? And she says, your dad left us first, and then my dad left. Now, you know how they say that when you're about to pass away, you get that one last surge of life?
Yeah.
Well, I saw it in that other room before he was transferred, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. It's very much like, the leaves nowadays, the autumnal leaves, that last surge of red, beautiful red before they go dormant. And I said, what time did he pass away? And she said, around 6:15-ish, and Dad followed around 5 minutes after. And before, when they both had that last surge of life in the other room before they were transferred, we had joked. And my dad said, we're throwing a big party. We're going to have a party because we're going to make it. And then he looked at me and said, get me out of here. Get me my clothes. We're going home. Mm. It was just that last surge. Mm-hmm. And I laughed and I said, how funny. So now they're having their party up there.
Party, yeah.
She starts crying. And I said, I'm so sorry for your loss. And she goes, I'm so sorry for yours. We worked so hard and being positive. I said, I know. I said, God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. So I walked over to his bed, which was all ready for the next patient. And I looked at his sitting and I took pictures of it. Mm-hmm. I said, well, I know you can see it from up there now, Dad. Mm-hmm. And then she says, he died singing. I said, what? So my father, before he became a family man, wanted to be a professional mariachi singer. There's a very famous, even George Strait paid homage to Vicente Fernandez, who is known as the father of the mariachi, the Mexican Western songs. And even George Strait said he's the king, when Vicente Fernandez passed away a couple of years ago. My father always wanted to have that voice. So my father was very much wanting to be that mariachi singer. And he had the mariachi outfits and everything. He was always singing. He literally, at one point, we were so humble that he needed to work up to 4 jobs to make ends meet when we moved to America. But he was always singing. He was always a positive light, always singing. I mean, literally, I would see him going to his 4th job after coming home. He's like, okay, gotta go. And he'd be singing. And that's just who he was. So I looked at her and I said, I need to know. I go, what song was he singing? And she goes, I'm not sure, but it was a mariachi song. And he kept asking for Rita. Who is she? I said, that's my mom. And she says, well, he was asking for her. And then he sat down, he laid back, and he died of a pulmonary embolism. We didn't know that. I mean, she didn't know that, but he died. And I said, okay, he did it his way. Now, my father throughout our lives was very tight with money. Yeah. To the point where it was wintertime. Oh, no, we're not using the heater. You've got a coat. You've got a sweater. And we'd be like, okay. So he made me have my thick skin to this day. And so I knew that if he knew, he did it his way. And the fact that he decided to leave us in Mexico because it would have been the expenses for less. And my mom, who is a devout Catholic, and now things have changed, but she's like, but we can't cremate him. And so everything was run. I was handling the funeral arrangements, and I said, Mom, I guarantee you, Dad will haunt us every single day if he knows we paid for his body to be flown back to America. Because I did look into that, and it was going to cost $15,000 to take just his vessel back home. And I said, no, I don't want to be haunted. He would die if we knew we spent this kind of money.
Yeah.
So she succumbed, and we did. It was beautiful. I mean, I had the mariachi playing for his mass. I mean, it was just beautiful. In Mexico, you have 5 days worth of prayer leading up to, after he leaves us, his soul left us. And but he did it his way, and he died in Mexico because he knew it was going to be a lot less expensive. And it was beautiful. We did have his celebration of life in America for all of the family and friends in America. But yeah, he was interesting. And he's the first one in my family that has passed away. So it was very, very hard. I just, yeah, that was really hard. But here I am. I always look back, oh, Dad, look at me, and I'm doing it for you. So I actually had to go and confirm it was his body. And, they open up that horrible bag. And there's just no life, there's just the vessel.
Yeah.
And his soul has left. And then the funeral people came and they took him in this beautiful van, it's like, oh, it's so pretty. And so my cousin's with me, and we're walking so I think we can get a taxi back to the funeral parlor, because we do this whole thing throughout the night and pray and stay up with the body. And but I mean, it was the weirdest thing, because there was no flowers at the time, and there's waft of just beautiful roses came as the van drove by. And I was okay.
And you're Rosie.
I'll see you later, Dad. And so then, he left, but God bless him. He left me so many gifts. And one of them is, ironically, flash forward, April 1st, his birthday is April 4th, 1936 is when he was born. April 1st, I started a health journey because my doctor threatened with surgery for a back. I have spinal stenosis that was diagnosed a couple of years ago. And he's so gracious, because I said, okay, doctor, besides losing weight, what could I have done differently to not have this? And he looks at me and he says, the weight would help, Rosa, I'm telling you. He says, but it's your age. You've got spinal stenosis. Well, in March, at the beginning of this month, I couldn't walk. It was so severe. And the epidural injections were not helping me anymore. And he threatened. He says, I think you might have to have surgery. And I said, let me try some more epidurals. Let me see. And I made a promise to myself. So on April 1st, I started that health journey. Tough every day, but I just, it's ironic because my dad, he always was wanting to make me be healthier with my weight. And so now that's another gift that he has left. Anyway, my lifestyle changed finally. And I know he's so proud of me, because whenever we would talk, are you using the magic bullet? This is what you do. You get your vegetable, spinach, zucchini. And he would always tell me, and then, no sugars. It's like, okay, Dad, how about how you doing? But yeah, so anyway, but that's my dad. And I miss him. We're going to be celebrating his 10-year, I believe, in legacies. He left behind myself, my 2 brothers, my sister, and he left behind a niece, a granddaughter, and 4 grandsons. And so on the 5th, I'm doing it every 5 years, but the 10th is coming up. And so his favorite drink was, he called it a merjurje, which I think is just like, I want to say it translates to like a mutt of a drink. So instead of a rum and Coke, it was Pepsi and tequila with lime. And then the rim had a little bit of salt. And when he retired, he had his good buddy, and they would come over to the house. This is where we live in America, and come over to the house. And the 2 of them every Sunday would just sit there and just talk. and they would laugh and they would invite the neighbors as they're walking by, come on over. My mom was like, God, it looks like a shanty town out there. What are they doing? He'd be like rotisserie chicken, and he would have like all these little appetizers, and the neighbors would come around, come on over. And I'd come out there and there's like this little party. Like, Dad. So what I'm doing on his 10th, I've already got these cute little boxes. I'm getting these little tequila bottles and the lime and a little shot glass and a picture of him. And I'm going to say, let's remember him on December 20th. Cheers to your grandpa. Cheers to Dad. We love you. We know you're partying up there. Don't party too hard. Just sing your heart out. So that's what we're doing. And I already have this beautiful gift wrap that, thank goodness technology, Shutterfly, you can order gift wrap with pictures. So it's all his life, pictures from his life. And that's going to be the wrap, as they go out to the immediate family members. And so we're going to be toasting him and his legacy.
Oh my God. I love this. I love you.
Julie, I just rambled on. Oh my goodness. Here I am. I'm not going to cry.
No, it's wonderful. That's what my podcast is all about. Your story.
I know, I've been listening. Yes, I love it.
Thank you. Oh my God, your story. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. It should be a movie. It's just amazing. The whole thing. I could just see all of it. And okay, this is weird, okay? When you said mariachi, okay, last night we were like looking for something to watch on Netflix, and this movie, I never heard of this. I didn't even know it was a thing, but it was called something like Mariachi Varsity or Varsity through Mariachi. Apparently, it's a very competitive thing in high school in like along like the Rio Grande area. I'm not sure what state they were in. And I didn't know really anything about mariachi except, eating in my favorite Mexican restaurants in Los Angeles.
Stop it, you're making me hungry.
I was like, okay, wait. Did your dad like visit me the night before I was going to meet you?
Maybe. And it would just be like his personality. Seriously. He loved teaching people. And if he knew, I will tell him tonight.
I've never seen it. I've never scrolled past. And we were like, ooh, we got to watch that.
So bizarre. See, that's a gift that you have given me. Wow. Because that is just so my dad. That is amazing. So, and the 49er game, San Francisco 49ers, they had their game on Sunday. And my sister sends me this clip. And I think this little boy has been on America's Most Talented or America's Got Talent. And he sang the Star Spangled Banner with his mariachi outfit. And I mean, that is a really hard song to sing. And he belted it out with such and I, immediately thought of my dad, but her son, my nephew, Dimitri, he is a trip and a half. So I was the only one able to stay with my mom and at my dad's bedside, literally. When he was passing away, he had a very special bond with my nephew. He was only, I think, a year. No, he was maybe like 2, maybe 3 years. Oh God, I forget. But he had a very special bond. And my little nephew loved my father's voice because he was this baritone and he would just sing with and my little nephew was just so impressed, and he would like sneak into the bedroom, and my father, there's a video and it's so sweet that my sister captured, and it's just him just learning how to walk, and he's like stops at the bedroom door, and my father's just like singing one of his arias, whatever it is. And my little nephew is just like, like more. And so now the gift that he left us is this child who is so creative, so musically talented. He sings, he dances, and he has discovered Elvis Presley. So he does Elvis Presley competitions with adults, and so I always say that's dad, that's dad telling him, go be a presence on that stage. he was not a crier. He's a pretty mellow kid. My sister's very mellow, his mother. So he was a very mellow kid. When we came back from America, or from the Mexico back to the United States home, my brother says, gosh, it was really weird. We couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. He would not stop crying. He just cried and cried and cried. And he says, what time did dad pass away? And I said, 6 something, Mexico time. He said, that's when he stopped crying. And I went, so my little nephew knew what was going on with his grandpa, his abuelito. And so to this day, and he's inherited my dad's El Camino. My father was very proud, even though he never became an American citizen, he's very proud, and would always have the American flag on the El Camino. And there were times when we just did not, there was a time there where he lost his jobs. He only had one, and it wasn't enough to feed all of us and to get us, making ends meet. But he swallowed his pride, and he went to the Civic Center, and he applied for food stamps. Now, mind you, we're going to these schools where they're very affluent, but actually he didn't swallow his pride. He was, he just went.
Yeah.
He applied and he got the food stamps. And now it's not a little credit card thing. It was like the Monopoly money where the color, and I'd be like, oh, God, I can't believe my friends are going to know about this. And so we use them. And when he got his second job, when he got another job, he put us all in his beat up station wagon, and we went back to the Civic Center. Do you know that he had to sit down, and he brings back the food stamps to the lady, and he says, here you go. Thank you. That's what makes America great. Thank you for the help. It helped me. I've got another job now. Here you go. And the lady literally went, what? And he says, I don't need them anymore. I got my second job.
Oh.
I will make it from here, but I appreciate that you were here to help me out.
Oh, oh my God, the integrity.
We're so young, and we're like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But he handed them back. And I never forget the lady's question was, who does that?
Yeah.
That was my dad.
Yeah.
That was my dad. He was very proud. Like I said, he never became an American citizen, but he was a very proud American. And he had that American flag all over his El Camino. And, back in the day, he says, you're in a new country, you acclimate. We all bleed the same. Don't you ever let anybody tell you otherwise. And I think that is what makes me this tenacious person. And like, no, I bleed the same as you do. So no.
That's right.
So anyway, but yeah, my little nephew, and but yeah, thank you for just letting me talk about him. This has been so cathartic. I actually thought I was going to be crying throughout, Julie. I'm like, oh my gosh, Julie's going to be like, delete, Rosa, sorry, seriously. But look, I have my Kleenex, and I think I only used one. So anyway. But, and then can I just tell you, America, so leading to America being so great, and my father being such a proud person to be living in the United States of America, we had a heck of a time getting through security in Mexico. Again, any security that you see, they always have these big rifles. It's just normal. You go shopping center, they have these rifles. Yeah. I don't know how the crime is,
crazy.
Whatever. And he oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Leaving the airport in Guadalajara, they were not nice. And so I had this sweater, which I actually was going to wear today. It's this black sweater, and it was just this heart, this with little sequins on it, a heart. And I decided to wrap his beautiful urn with my sweater, and his remains went in a very specific carry-on. and I made it really pretty and everything. We get to the security in Mexico, and they were just disrespectful. They wanted to open it up, and I said, I said, you do that, and you will be haunted for the rest of your life. These are my dad's remains. I'm showing you the paperwork, which is notarized.
Yeah.
There's no need for you to be opening this urn. He went through your machines. There's nothing there. There's nothing to see. So, the guy gave me heck. He was a young kid. I'm like, I want to talk to your supervisor.
Yeah.
Here's the paperwork. What am I missing about this? Okay. We make the trek. My mom we're just downtrodden. I'm like, wow, I can't believe dad's gone. Get to San Jose Airport, and we have to go through customs. And I'm very particular at protecting the luggage that my dad's remains are in. There's a long line waiting to go through security or customs. And one of the TSA members comes over and very gruff and says, that needs to go this way and blah, blah. And I said, just so you know, these are my dad's remains. And he just stopped. He says, okay. And he watches for us to get closer and closer to the conveyor security x-ray thingy. And he sees us. And God bless him. Because he cordoned off everybody else that was behind us. He cordoned off the x-ray. I think that's what they're called, right? X-ray.
Yeah.
Cordons it all off with this beautiful red velvet rope, like it's a red carpet type of thing, right? And he tells people to step away. And he looks at my mom and he says, whenever you're ready. And so I translate. And she's just shocked because the difference night and day. And then my father's remains in his urn go through just by themselves through the x-ray machine. Towards the end, he picks it up. We go through our bit, brings it over, and bows. And says, I am so sorry for your loss. God bless you. May he rest in peace. And I just went, oh, thank you. Because, in our lives, we all want to inspire. We all want to thrive and inspire. And my whole thing is I always want to leave people feeling better than they already do. And that's why I do what I do. I'm a patient advocate. I'm in my office today. I'm a patient advocate, and everyone has a story. Tell me your story. And that's how I start to assess and see how I can advocate on their behalf and paying their huge medical bills. Tell me your story. Everyone has a story. And I'm grateful because my dad taught me the love of reading, of words, of finding out people's story and finding empathy. And I'm just so grateful to my dad. And Julie, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like I know your dad just a little bit. And that's
next time you listen to mariachi, you just think of Isidro Montaño.
I will. I just can't believe the synchronicity that I watched this movie about mariachi last night. I'll text you.
That's fine. When you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, Dad, you're so funny up there. And he is, because that's typical.
I'll text you the name of it exactly.
Yes, I want to know.
Yeah. Well, it's just been such a blessing meeting you today.
Likewise, Julie. And I just added you on my Facebook. Thank you for the ad. I look forward to seeing where you're going and your beautiful story, and how you have discovered your gifts of your losses, your beloved mother and your father. And right now I don't know if you can tell, but there's a light on you. And I know there probably is. but there's an aura in you. And God bless
Oh,
you. Stay glorious, be glorious.
thank
Yeah.
you. You too. Okay. We'll keep in touch.
Yes, we will.
All
I know
right.
it.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.